Welcome to the 14 Going on 41 podcast. I'm Arvind, and joining me is my teenage co-host, the Gen Z speaking, world schooling, ocean loving, history buffing, always mogging, now podcasting, Kiara Arana.
Hey Arvind, and hey to everyone from wherever on planet Earth you may be right now. Welcome to another episode where we explore the road less traveled. I love guests who have taken big swings in life, and today we really have one of those people.
He has absolutely taken some big ones, and in probably the biggest stage in the world because he's done it in the glitzy world of Hollywood.
Yeah, I was absolutely blown away by the work he's done with shows like The OC and Nashville, and now he's moved to Scotland. So in today's talk, there is bound to be wanderlust, bravery, and definitely cinematic power.
When you say Scotland, bravery, and cinematic in one sentence, I can't help but think about Braveheart.
Sorry, what's Braveheart?
What do you mean, what's Braveheart? Are you serious?
Yes. I don't know what Braveheart
Braveheart is just one of the greatest movies ever. It won an Oscar 30 years ago, maybe for Best Picture. And I think it won about 4 others. And that was when Mel Gibson had not gone into his later phase in life. So he was still good. How have you not seen Braveheart?
I don't know. I just haven't. But it seems like you really, really like that movie.
I mean, it's a story about William Wallace and how he fought for Scotland's independence. And that movie had a really cool, catchy catchphrase, right? I remember it even now. It said, all men die, only some men live.
Oh, well, that's pretty deep. And our guest today definitely has lived. And his name is Loucas George.
Well, not to be confused with George Lucas.
Who's George Lucas?
You haven't heard of George Lucas? And you haven't heard of Braveheart? What have you learned?
I'm kidding. I've seen the Star Wars stories, but I think Loucas George's story from producing shows like Empire and The Walking Dead and so many more is pretty unique.
That is true. Not to be confused with The Empire Strikes Back. That's the other George Lucas. But Loucas George's shows are pretty amazing. And I've had the good fortune of meeting him in real life. And he has so many great stories to tell. So I can't wait to get him on board and hear from him. In fact, you might not know this, Kiara, but he may be one of the last people in the world who's actually sung live with John Lennon.
What? Seriously?
That is true, but we'll let it be for now. There will be an answer, but we'll let it be.
Okay, so I can't wait to get Loucas on the podcast. But before that, I think it's time.
You mean it's time for our
Gen Z word of the day.
Okay, this is where you teach me the cool lingo kids are using. Hit me. What's today's word?
Bet.
You want me to bet on what today's word is going to be?
No. Today's word is bet. I mean, it sounds like it has something to do with gambling, but in Gen Z terms, that's not what it is at all.
Okay. I would have guessed friendly wager, but since you said it's not that, bet. It sounds like half of better. So if you're not quite better than someone, but halfway there, so half better, you kind of bet.
No, not at all. Actually the meaning of bet is pretty simple. It just means, okay, deal. I'm down, challenge accepted. So if you said, let's record an episode at 5 p.m. today, I'd be like, okay, bet.
Okay, bet is like, I'm down with it.
Yeah, exactly it.
Okay, I get it. I'm learning so much from you, Kiara. I wish we'd started this earlier, but I guess it's better late than never.
Well, we shouldn't be late for our episode recording with our guest. So grab your popcorn and...
Or your kale chips.
Okay, whatever, sure. So grab your popcorn, your kale chips, your nachos, or any other alternative because we're about to hear some amazing stories with our guest,
Loucas George! We are back with someone who's created real magic on screen from shows like The Early Edition, The OC, Walking Dead, Empire, more recently Good Omens, Nashville, where he worked with some really special people, over 3 decades of experience. Your IMDb profile says you have 42 producer credits, but I'm sure they're missing another 50. Loucas George, it's really amazing to have you here with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's really nice to meet you, Loucas. And I've heard that you have elder brothers who were lawyers, and there was a path that you may have been headed down, the path of lawyers. But before we get there, I was wondering, when you were my age, when you were 14, did you have any idea of what you wanted to do in life?
Yeah, interestingly, I guess I was a history buff. So I was very much into American history per se, as where I was brought up. And everybody who seemed to be anybody in American history was a lawyer, and you talk about Thomas Jefferson and all of these people. So I thought that's what I should be, So from an early age, I felt I wanted to be a lawyer. I felt that that's where I was going to go, because that seemed to be the best way to go. And then my brothers, who are older than me, they're 7 years older than me. They're twins, so there's two of them. They were on that.
Sorry, I had to interrupt, Loucas. I had one elder brother, and that was hard.
Yeah.
Who was also 7 years older than me, which meant he was bigger than me. Mm-hmm. You had two of them, so that couldn't have been easy.
No, it wasn't easy. As a matter of fact, if you had one older brother and I'm sure you had hand-me-downs. I had hand-me-downs, but I had doubles of everything, so they would never wear out. So I would always get like 2 sweaters and 2 pairs of pants, and I never had my own. And it used to bum me out a little bit that, that not only was I getting hand-me-downs, but I'd have doubles of everything that I got. But yeah, I was going to be a lawyer, and that's where I was heading for. And that's why when I got to college and everybody else was doing liberal arts and trying to figure out what they wanted to be, I was going to be a lawyer. So what do you be when you're a lawyer? You're a political science major. And that's what I was.
And so how does one go from lawyer to ending up producing film and TV shows?
Interesting. One of the things I did when I was in college was I saw a movie, Paper Chase, and I got it was about a very serious legal preoccupation, I would say. So I decided I was going to do that too. And I took all the toughest courses I could take at college for law, constitutional law, all these things. But at the same time, I knew I had to keep my cum up to get into a good college. So I was taking gut courses, or what I considered to be gut courses that would, something that I thought would be easy for me to keep my cum up with and not take up all my bandwidth with what I was doing for law. So I took acting and I took theater appreciation, which I thought was good. And instead of taking a foreign language, which I was horrible at for some reason, I decided I took French film and Italian cinema, and and those counted as language credits. But I wound up studying Bertolucci and Antonioni and stuff like this. And I had 4 years of creative writing and photography, and those are the courses that I was taking.
And these were courses you took in order to just get easy credits, easy marks, thought it would just help you on the path to law.
Yeah, I thought that this would keep my cum up and at the same time not be difficult for me to do, and something that I was interested in and liked, so theater and film and stuff like this. So, and it worked out that was the more important classes for me than constitutional law or comparative foreign policy. So I was still on my way.
Those sound fascinating, by the way.
Yeah, right. But yeah, and I was on my way to law school. I even took my LSATs, and I was going to law school when I visited my brothers at my brothers graduated number 1 and number 2 out of their law school, Rutgers Law School. And they got jobs in Wall Street on the best firms you could get jobs in. As a matter of fact, they were the only people to get in there from non-Ivy League schools, because Rutgers wasn't an Ivy League school. And I went to visit them. And I visited my brother on a weekend, on a Saturday in New York, and he had his suspenders on, and he was working hard. And I thought, I'm not going to graduate number 1 or number 2. I'm not, in a competitive thing like they are. And if this is the best I could hope for when I got out of law school, I didn't want to do it. So I was sort of
you really didn't want to wear suspenders.
No, I didn't want to wear suspenders and work on weekends and, and be trying to become a partner or whatever it was, that they were doing at that particular point. So I became totally disillusioned with the idea of becoming a lawyer. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do with a political science degree. It's either you become a diplomat or you become an international banker. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And that's when somebody said to me, all the other things that I've been doing, like film and TV, and school, acting and all that stuff, that maybe there was something I should be doing along those lines. And so I went out and tried to get into the film business instead, and to see what that would be like if I could do that, because I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life otherwise, And I wound up loving it. As a matter of fact, I had an uncle in the business who, like everybody has somebody in the business per se. And he said to me, go to law school. I said, I want a job. He said, I'll work as a PA. I'll do what you have to do, as a runner. And he said to me, no, go to law school. And I said, no, I want to do this. Can't you get me a job? So he said, I'll get you a job. You can work for free for Panavision, which was the premier camera house in New York at the time. And I got a job working at Panavision for free. And he thought that'd take it out of me and I would go to law school. But no, I was working on some fantastic old films like King Kong, which was shot in New York at that time. I mean, not the old King Kong, but the newest one.
You say newest one, Lucas, but there've probably been about 3 versions after that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, I fell in love with the business and that was it. And I just never wanted to leave it then after that. So I stayed in it, so that was a big change for me to go in that way,
How did they manage to get a giant gorilla to climb the Empire State Building, Lucas? I've always wondered that.
Well, it changes like you say, there's been several of them and it's been changing ever since, In the beginning, it was all stop motion, with Ray Harryhausen. And then, now, and then, the business has changed so much since I've been in it, When I started out in the film business, it was butterfly splices. And if you wanted to do a 2-second dissolve or a 3-second dissolve or whatever, you had to go to the optical house. And if you didn't like it later on, it didn't feel right. It was a big deal to go back and change it. Now you can do it. I can do it on my editing computer right here in my office. Then CG came out with computer graphics with Steven Spielberg and so on. And the business has been changing ever since. And I think it's great because I've always felt that this business in particular was one, not like being a painter. You had to be like a conductor for an orchestra. Everybody contributes something in the film business. You have your gaffer, you have your DP, you have your director, you have your writer. So everybody comes together with a project and you don't know what the project's going to be until it's finished because everybody contributes something. And there's a little bit of luck that goes into making something good. And there's a lot of talent that goes into making something that's good. But it's also the mixture of those people. If you have to put the right people together to get the right product at the end. And that has changed. And now you can almost do everything in your home. I mean, you can sort of, from editing to shooting to even conceiving things. I mean, I've been playing with AI and I've built things that don't even have actors and shots that I would take, hundreds of thousands of dollars to shoot.
And you don't have to put up with the drama of the actors. But before we get into those stories, Kiara, I think you had a question.
Yeah, so you talked about the importance of all those different roles. Forgive me, but I just wanted to understand a little bit more about what is the role of a producer?
Oh, the age-old question. I get that all the time. There are so many different people who are producers. When you see a movie and you see the credits and the producer, co-producer, supervising producer, all the rest of these things. Producer is sort of a catch-all title, I think, to a certain extent. If you're a writer and you have been there for a couple of years, if you're a writer and you created the show, you're a producer. If you're a writer and you've been there for a couple of years and you want to raise, instead they make you a producer. So a lot of producers are just producers. They're not really producers. They don't know about producing. What I did as a producer, I was in television. It's different from television and movies, but in television, I was a line producer. I was the one who, in a way, actually produced the film. So in other words, they would come to me, the studios will come to me with a script that's been greenlit and say, we want you to produce this for us. So then I look at the script and I talk to the directors and or even sometimes we hire the directors or we hire everybody else. And then we go out. And so for instance, with Nashville, that was one of the things that happened to me. If you look at the creation of Nashville, if you're a country Western fan, you're probably familiar with the Opry, which is a very famous place.
The Grand Old Opry.
Grand Old Opry. And the person who ran the Grand Old Opry, they had an agent in Hollywood for CAA. And he went to CAA, and they wanted to do something with the Grand Ole Opry to promote it a little bit more and do something with it. And CAA put them with Callie Curry, who wrote Thelma and Louise, and she was also a CAA client, and she was familiar with Nashville and liked Nashville. Her husband was T-Bone Burnett, the music producer, who is very famous. And CAA gave them a guy named R.J. Cutler, who was a documentary producer, director. He'd really only done documentaries, never done television before. And this is all through Lionsgate at the time. And Lionsgate made a deal with ABC to air the show. So they were partners in it. And they came to me then with the script and said, to produce it. So I read the script. I flew to Nashville. I went to the locations that were in the script to see what they were all about. I learned a little bit more about Nashville and country Western music, because I really wasn't a big fan at the time. Learned about the Bluebird, learned about all these things that, that made Nashville what it was and what made the script what it was. And then
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Lucas. I'm going to just say, Kiara, there's a lot of things here which is perfect for our segment later in the good old days. But there's so much about Nashville and country music you got to learn. But before Taylor Swift put country music on the map for your generation, it's got so much history. And Nashville, I visited you out there, Lucas. It's a phenomenal place.
It is a phenomenal place. It's the music capital, like Hollywood is the film capital. Nashville is the music capital. So while living in Los Angeles, which I did for like 25 years, everybody in Los Angeles, it's a little disappointing, is in the film business. I mean, everybody. My pool guy's grandfather had written Miracle on 34th Street. I mean, everybody has something to do with the film business. When you get to Nashville, everybody has something to do with the music business. The guy who comes up to fix your TV in your hotel room has a band that plays down the block, and they are the best band you've ever heard in a million years. You don't understand why he's still fixing TVs in the hotel.
He really loves TVs. I mean, the band's just a side gig, But
yeah, no, it's a crazy place, and there's so much history there with Elvis Presley and, recording studios and stuff like that. And that was one of the things that I think we did well. I prided myself on was that everything we did in Nashville was true to Nashville, real studios, real stories, the real thing. And if anything, we were complimented on that at the Country Music Awards and stuff like that. It was a good show for a while, a lot of fun.
And so as the producer, you're essentially like a GM, startup CEO. You're essentially taking the calls. You're trying to figure out how to get it done, work with talent, work with studios, work with the government, in this case, Nashville, the tourism board, etc., and putting it all together.
I am sort of the middle person between the creative and the money. If something is done without any respect for the business, you wind up with something that no one can afford. If something is done with no respect for the art, you wind up with something that nobody wants. So, there's a balance that has to be struck there so that you're making the right widgets for television that is creatively something that people want to see.
Yeah.
And at the same time is something that the studios can afford to produce, put on.
And how are you balancing that? That actually can be really tricky, right? Because you'll have, I don't know, a director with this vision of, I need to get this shot. You've got to balance, like you said, commercial success with creative authenticity. How are you on the spur of the moment deciding whether to go one way or the other?
Well, that's the beauty of the position, I guess, in a way. Being the line producer, you have certain powers and responsibilities that you can say. So and that's the whole thing, is especially, as I said before, with a television show or with what we do, there's a lot of visions. The writer has a vision that's been written into the script. You bring in a director, the director brings their vision to that script, and wants to go. Now, they can't. And the show has an overall vision. The show has a certain look that keeps to it, and the actors from episode to episode. So you can't have a director come in and just totally do something different. That doesn't work. So I'm there to stop them. You can't have a director come in and say, I want 1,000, 2,000 people, in this audience, and we can't, and that's going to blow the budget, So then that's going to mean, okay, now you can't afford to have 3 cameras for this shot. Or you can't afford to have that. So, those are the kind of things that you have to go back and forth with. And as you said before, it's with dealing with actors and dealing with it. It's a business of egos. There's a lot of egos. And you have to balance all of those egos against each other. The actor's egos, the director's egos, the studio's ego, the writer's egos. Everybody has to be. So in a way, it's really good. If you had a psychology degree, you'd probably be better set than a political science degree.
Fair enough.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh.
Should put that on a tagline for a movie, Kiara.
Yeah.
Sounds profound.
I wanted to ask, from all your shows, have there been any episodes or any arcs that were turning points for you personally?
Oh, interesting. Well, I think a show that I met my wife on, a show called Early Edition that I shot in Chicago, was a turning point for me to a certain extent, because I had come out of I started doing commercials in New York, and then I started doing music videos, and then I started doing movies. I hadn't really done a television series. I still think of it as the Camelot of my career, because it was one of the best, creatively in many ways, one of the best shows I ever did. I had a great relationship with the showrunner, writer for the show, who directs all the writing. And he was in Los Angeles while we were in Chicago. And I used to be able to send him locations and say, hey, look at this location. This is something we might want to build into a script. And he would build it into the scripts, and he would send me scripts. And we had a great back and forth all the time. And it was a fun show to shoot. It was about a guy who got tomorrow's newspaper today from a cat. And he used to he'd read the paper and have to go out and stop things from happening. So a little boy's going to get run over by a bus. He'd get there and stop the little boy from being run over by the bus. He'd do all these little things. So every show had 3 or 4 stunts in it, which kept it active. And we were outside a lot. We only shot so much inside. And it was a fun show. And I loved Chicago. And it was of all the shows I've done, it's still probably one of my favorites.
And this almost sounds like a precursor to Person of Interest. Right, where you actually get to know what's happened before, and then you have to go ahead and stop it.
Exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so this was clearly one of your turning points, in spite of the fact that you met your wife on the show.
In spite of the fact I met my wife on the show, yeah.
I've met your wife, Loucas, and she is a lovely lady. So you are a lucky man.
After I did that show, then suddenly I got pigeonholed into doing television shows all the time. That was like 4 years in Chicago, and then it was like a couple of years in Nashville. So you go to these places and you really get to know them, get to know the cities and get to know the people there. And I like that a lot, and I get to know my crew. It's not like, on a movie, you work with a crew, and then after you just really get to know everybody and like everybody, and they become family. The movie's over and everybody goes in different directions. You might not see people for a long time. Where a TV show, you could keep the family together for a longer time. And I like that.
That is very cool. TV shows, season after season after season, it's like being at a company. And I've never really thought about it, because when you're at a traditional corporate job and you're there for a few years, you tend to stick around with the same crew all the time. But with something like a film, you come together for a short project, and then just as those bonds are starting to deepen, you then start to break away.
On the other side of it, I have to say that's one of the things that's always attracted me to this business, is that I sort of know that, when I meet somebody who I really don't like, or I can't stand, or they annoy me, I know it's only for a little while.
Fair enough. Kiara, you need to figure out whether this podcast is a long-term thing or a short-term project. And it could be influenced based on how you get along with your co-host.
Yeah, it's only been a few episodes with you so far, Arvind.
That's usually enough.
No, I'm still good for now. Loucas, you talked about moving around from different cities in America. How do you compare living in America to living in Scotland now?
I love living in Scotland. It's
Sorry, I have to interrupt you, Loucas. I asked Kiara this off script, but I'll ask her again. Do you know what the national animal of Scotland is, Kiara?
No.
I'm sure you do, Loucas.
I do, absolutely. Unicorn.
The unicorn. I mean, how can you not love a country whose national animal is the unicorn?
This is a great country. The people here are fantastic. The countryside is incredible, beautiful. And I think since I've come to Scotland, I've seen a lot of very subtle but very different cultural things that I appreciate a lot more. The people here really work to live. They don't live to work. And I think in the States, you're always working 16-hour day. When I came here and I did Good Omens, I was surprised that when I wanted to do normally, and I just came off of Walking Dead, and Walking Dead, we could shoot 14-hour days, 15-hour days. They still have the pressure on you that you have to deliver the show by such and such a date. So you wind up doing what you have to do to get the show done and delivered on time. When I came here to do Good Omens, we shot 10-hour days. And if you had to go over 10 hours because something had gone wrong, an actor was sick, whatever, my line producer, because I was producing that show, I had a line producer underneath me. He had to go around and ask everybody on the crew, if they would work overtime. And if anybody said no, we didn't work overtime. And I was shocked at that because it's not very businesslike in a certain respect, but it is very human. And I appreciate that. And when directors and everybody else know that you're only going to shoot 10 hours, absolutely, and you're going to go home after 10 hours, guess what? They get done in 10 hours. And I live in a little town about an hour north of Glasgow and Edinburgh, right before the Highlands. And, it's sort of a tourist town. A lot of people come here from all over on their way up to the Highlands. But the stores here close at like 6 o'clock. 6:30. There might be a lot of business in the streets, but they close because they go home. They're like, it's time for us to go home and have tea. I appreciate that. That's what life should be. And that's the way people should be. It should be that people are, more in tune with themselves and their life and other people than they are about business all the time. So that's one aspect culturally that's different here that I really appreciate.
You said it's about being human, right? And I think that is profound. And I can understand how it would be difficult after Walking Dead because there were a lot of zombies on that show. Right?
Absolutely.
So being human is much harder. But that might be a subtle dig at how maybe we're all corporate zombies sometimes and not really in touch with humanity.
In a way, it's like producing a film. You have to balance, don't you? You have to balance the business with the art. And I think you have to balance life with what you need to live. And it's sort of, what do you need to to be happy, and do you need money? Do you need time? Do you need somebody else? What do you need to be happy? And I think that there's a balance there that how do you achieve what you feel you need to be happy?
That would be the perfect segue to a segment that we play later on. But I think, Arvind, do you have any more questions?
There's one thing we teased at the start, but we never really got to. Is it true that you were one of the last humans to sing a duet with John Lennon?
Yes, that is true.
How did that happen?
How did that happen? There's a crazy director who I used to do a lot of music videos with, Billy Joel and Pat Benatar and stuff like this. And I was living in New York City. And he called me one time at like 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night and said, what are you doing? Come here. Come. I need you right away. I'm doing this thing with John Lennon. And I was like, you're crazy. No, I'm in bed. I'm not. Needless to say, I went down. He was shooting at the Hit Factory in Manhattan. And it was John Lennon and Yoko. And we were shooting there. And as a matter of fact, Yoko was doing her Primal Scream thing, which I was not familiar with and thought she was goofing on us. But then one of our cameras went down and we were waiting for someone else to come in and fix it for us. So we were just hanging out in the studio and John and I started singing this song together. And actually, it became like a thing where all of a sudden, like now, years and years and years and years later, those videos were actually called the lost videos because they shot them just before John was shot. And they sucked them back up again, and they've been sort of floating around, but no one's really seen them for the most part. But but somebody had a whole thing about the lost videos on the web somewhere, and they talked about the fact that I was singing this song with John Lennon at the piano.
Wow.
Before then, yeah. So it was a great honor to meet Mr. John Lennon and Yoko and work with them. And of all the people I've met and worked with, they seem to get the most attention.
That is a great story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to go for the next segment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so join us after the break where we will be playing the 14 going on 41 What If game. It's time to play the 14 going on 41 What If game. So to explain it to you, Loucas, we'll be asking you questions. They all start with what if, and they're creating an alternate reality situation. And then you need to answer based on how you think your life would have turned out in these scenarios.
I'm happy to go with the first.
Mm-hmm.
Loucas, what if you had actually gone down that corporate law path? Where do you think you would be today?
Oh, I'm not sure. I mean, I wonder. I wonder if I'd be happy. I don't know if I would be as happy as I am necessarily right now. I mean, law and law practice also leads to politics. Maybe I would have gone into politics, tried to do something in politics, tried to help other people in the country and stuff, because I do get very involved in politics. In the corporate setting, it would be interesting. I don't know. I'd have to see. It's the tough road to hoe, I think.
With a lawyer to politician is a great plot twist, though.
If you had stayed down the lawyer path, I could see you as like a Harvey Specter or a Robert Zane.
Mm-hmm. I would like to think of myself that way.
Yes. I'm going to go with the next question, which is, what if you could travel back to when you were 14 years old? What advice would you give to your 14-year-old self?
Ooh. It's interesting to me that when I was in college, the thing that I did that I thought that I was, enjoying and screwing up with, like acting and photography and creative writing, turned out to be the thing that was best for me. And the thing that I got the most use out of, as opposed to what I thought I should be doing, which was becoming a lawyer and studying political science. And I found that throughout my life, sometimes, when I try to do what I think I should do, I wind up not doing as well as when I just do what I'd like to do. So I think if I had to give myself some advice when I was 14 years old, it would be to do what I like, but be disciplined at it. Put your heart and soul into it. Like I wish I'd studied film in college a little bit more. I wish I'd done more Hitchcock studies. A lot of my friends were art appreciation or whatever it is, and studied art. And I never did that because I thought that was frivolous. But now I wish I'd done more of it because I appreciate it so much more. And I think it would have helped me out too in my career.
I think that's great advice, especially Kiara, as you're figuring out your own path.
Yeah. What if TikTok had existed when you were first starting out? Do you think you would have used it to tell stories, or would you have avoided it completely?
That's a tricky question, because if TikTok existed when I first started out, you'd have to have the same technology that we have today in terms of being able to edit stuff in your house. If TikTok had existed and the technology for me to create my own stuff had existed when I was starting out, I would definitely be into TikTok. I would be creating my own product. Bringing my vision to a show has always been sort of tempered politically and every other way by the mechanism of the show, the writers, the director, everybody else. So your vision is never, you can contribute, but you can't create a vision, that really tells a story, that really has a moral, that really does things. So I think that if I had access to TikTok and was able to create my own shows and get them out there in front of people, I think that's what I would have been doing.
Unfettered storytelling.
No cap.
Completely switching gears now. What if you could swap lives with any actor that you've worked with, and just for a week, not forever? Who would it be and why?
Oh, gosh. Any actor I've worked with. Does it have to be an actor? Could it be a director?
Sure. Why don't you make it a director?
Make it a director? Okay. I think If I could swap with somebody, well, if it's only for a couple of weeks, that's not great. I'd really want to do it for longer than that. But I don't know. I've worked with Roland Emmerich. I think I'd like to switch with Roland and be able to make some of the films that he's made because they're fun. Big blockbuster action movies. I think I'd just and be able to just imagine things and have them come to pass is just a great thing. I mean, when you have that kind of a director with that kind of power and that kind of money, that you can just sort of imagine anything you want and you can make that happen. That is gotta be fun.
Is there a specific project? I can think of a couple, but
he's done so many that one of his first was Stargate, but I mean, you look at Day After Tomorrow. I mean, he's done so many great films. Just to have that imagination and be able to create those things is so much fun.
Given you had King Kong, I thought you would have said Godzilla because then it would have fit right in. So
he actually has done a film that I went to a screening for him, and it's interesting. It's Anonymous, which not many people know about. He did a film was about Shakespeare and who really Shakespeare was, and I thought that was a very good film, but he didn't get any credit for it because it wasn't a wang bang blockbuster action movie. It was more of a serious film, so his critics didn't give him a lot of credit for it. But I thought it was a great film.
So you talked about how my question about if TikTok had been around when you were starting. On the other hand, are there any things that you miss from the way the television industry used to be? So if I had to frame it from the what if thing, what if you could bring back one thing from the way TV used to be made just for fun? What would it be?
Good question. I am a fan of good writing and the old television. If you look at the old television, there's a show, I don't know if familiar with The Honeymooners, with Jackie Gleason. Mm-hmm. And that was shot basically on a single set. As a matter of fact, if you watch, and the writing is so good between him and his wife, and it's what they based the Flintstones off of. And even if you watch the set that they shoot in all the time, it's just one set. They even have the sun, the shadow of the sun painted on the wall behind the stove. So even at nighttime, there's a sun shadow on the wall. I mean, it's just like, they didn't spend any money on that. They spent it all on the writing and the acting, and that's what made the film good. If you look at The Twilight Zone, Rod Serling, which is another one of my favorite shows. If you really look at The Twilight Zone, you'll notice that almost all of them take place like on one set. You think about it, it's like they're great stories, like about a woman who in a little spaceship lands on her roof and she has to fight off these little astronauts. And then you find out that they are us, and then there's, another one where there's a guy and he's sort of in Vietnam and when he can see a glow on people's faces when they're going to die. And he sees this and it's always in the camp and he knows this is happening. And then he sees the glow on his own face and he knows he's going to die. But it all happens in the camp. It never leaves the camp. All of the Twilight Zones were written very well. I mean, the writing is so good and they don't spend, where today's shows, a lot of the shows today count on sex and violence and all sorts of other things and big production things, which have to make the show. When HBO first came out, it was like, oh, wow, they're cursing. And it was like, you can watch HBO. They said this and they said, and to a point, it got crazy. I mean, there were certain shows where it was like a curse word was every other word. And it's not that bothers me, but it just became so trite, that people don't talk that way.
It's funny you mentioned that. I know my wife and I have been watching a few older movies. So movies more than television, but both English and Hindi. So whether it's, some old Audrey Hepburn, Catherine Hepburn movies,
great.
Or in Hindi, there's this movie called Golmaal and Chupke Chupke, the originals, with Amol Palekar and Dharmendra. And the writing is so crisp and so witty and it flows. You can tell that there was a lot of time taken to actually come up with every line. And it's just a pleasure to listen to.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's, I mean, even the old movie, and that's the thing too, I think, but the culture has changed too, I have to say. I love the old films, a lot of the old black and white films, and I still watch them a lot. But I sort of know that sometimes the attention span of the younger crowd, 14-year-olds and so on, is not quite there. They're sort of wanting this to happen real fast. I showed my son.
Hold on a sec, Lucas. We just lost Kiara. 1 sec. I just need to get her back. Kiara, listen. Okay, you were talking about attention span of 14-year-olds. I just was making sure.
Exactly. I noticed with I've had two experiences. My older son, when he was young, I sat him down and wanted him to watch the Marx Brothers films because they're funny. And I thought, he'd get it. He hadn't been exposed to the Marx Brothers yet. And he couldn't get over the fact that they were black and white. That was all he could see, was that they were black and white. They're black and white. I was like, yeah, but they're funny. But they're black and white. And then later on, Aiden, who I said to him, he'd been watching a bunch of the Clint Eastwood films, Fistful of Dollars and, Dirty Harry and all
Good,
that.
The Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. And I said to him, there's a new Clint Eastwood film, Unforgiven, and it's really good. You have to watch this. So we sat down to watch Unforgiven. And I don't know if you've seen Unforgiven, but Unforgiven, the action doesn't happen until the very end. I mean, there's more story through the whole beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And he was like, sort of like, what is this? This is boring. And I was like, it's not boring. It's a great film. I mean, look at the interaction. I mean, this is a washed up gunfighter who's brought back in, and he, couldn't appreciate it. I think he appreciates it now, but back when he was younger, he couldn't appreciate it. And I think there's something going on right now. One of the things that's changing in our business, is changing in the whole culture, is there's these little 10-minute television series coming out from China. I don't know if you've seen or heard about these, but they're like a television series. So they have like 10 episodes or 20 episodes or whatever, but they're only 10 minutes long. But they're structured the same way a television show is. So you have the cliffhanger at the end of every 10-minute episode. So you want to watch the next one, and they're becoming very popular, I guess, all over the world. And they're becoming more lucrative than normal television. And I think that speaks to the attention span that we now have.
Yeah.
In younger people and stuff, and what's going on.
No, I'm seeing this in sport, right? Because golf or even football, it's a 90-minute game. And people are now my nephews are just watching the highlights of it, right? Because no one's watching the full game. Golf is struggling because who's going to sit and watch something over 4 days, which is where you've seen innovations in that sport. So you're going to have to adapt the format of what you're creating to younger audiences that don't have hours and hours and need, whether it's that instant gratification or that immediate peak moment.
What do you think they're going to do with cricket?
Well, they got it from a 5-day version to a T20 version. Who knows? 10 over version, 1 over version. No.
Yeah.
I'm a little embarrassed to say, but on Instagram, when we watch like videos or like TikTok in other parts of the world, now they have this thing called 2x, and these videos are no more than 3 minutes. They're usually around 30 seconds to a minute long, and most people my age, including me, watch these videos all at 2x. Like, it's just a habit now, and every single video we're watching is at 2x, no matter how short it is.
They sound like people are talking really fast and they can't understand what they're saying. They're talking like this. You have no idea what's going on, but they're talking 2x speed. Makes no sense.
When you say 2x, you mean it's going faster, so they're doing it quicker, huh? Oh my God! Yeah. I wonder if that doesn't make your mind understand that better. I wonder if that doesn't make you sort of, acclimate you to that kind of input. So maybe when you go up in the spaceship at some point in the future, you'll be able to, understand things.
That's the long game. That's the long game. If you're out in space where time moves differently, or you meet aliens who are speaking at 2x speeds, you'll be like, I get it. And here's why.
But going back to the what if game and going back to your teenage days, Lucas, what if you had to direct a movie about your own teenage years? What genre would it be? Comedy, drama, horror? I don't know.
I think it would be a dramedy. And I've thought about this because I've actually thought about starting to write a script about it to a certain extent. And I know exactly when it would be. It would be the period from when I was leaving high school, which I know is sort of a different thing because the school, situation in America is different from the school situation in the rest of the world. But, you go for 4 years of high school, and that's just before you get into college, and you have to, take your SATs and your LSATs. And so there's a lot of pressure. And then there's a lot of money to go to college. It costs a lot of money. So that period of my life, I think, when I was just getting out of high school and getting ready to go to college, and I was striking out on my own, I had a stepfather who I didn't get along with, who I've since come to cherish and love beyond belief. I mean, it's just that I was at that age where I guess, I was probably more hard to deal with than he was. And, but I moved out of the house as soon as I could. So as soon as I got into my senior year of high school, getting ready to go to college, I moved out of the house and I moved to the Jersey Shore and was, worked as a lifeguard. And then I worked on the boardwalk and that was a whole period of my life. That was Bruce Springsteen and, South Side, and all of that stuff down there. So I think it was an interesting time. The music was interesting. It was right after the 60s with the hippies and the communes. And so there was a lot of Vietnam was going on. So I think it was an interesting time in my life with the pressures that were on me at the time to sort of, to deal with things. And I think that's what I would have written about. But I think it's a dramedy, definitely a dramedy, because there's a great arc, but it's funny.
You've got us hooked, Lucas. I would watch this show. It sounds a bit like I don't know if you ever saw the Wonder Years, which had this guy Kevin Arnold growing up, and it was around the same time, Vietnam War, etc., etc. And you mentioned Springsteen. I know a little bit about your history, where family came from, but I'm giving you a title for your show or movie, Born in the USA.
Born in the USA, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There was a movie, Diner. I don't know if you ever saw that, but that was sort of that same period. And it was Ellen Barkin at the time, and everybody would sit there late at night and we drive to the Jersey Shore, in these cars that like GTOs, these big muscle cars, we, piled in there with, no seatbelts. That was for race car drivers, and beer and all sorts of other things, amazing that we're still alive.
Well, that is a great show to watch. I'm going to move to the next game unless you had any more questions, Kiara.
Let's move on to the happiness rating game.
Okay. So, Lucas, you've talked about happiness already. This is a game we play with all our guests. So we essentially list out a bunch of parameters and we ask everyone to rate how important they think these are to their personal happiness. So it's clearly something you've thought about because you've mentioned happiness a few times. It's something I'm thinking a lot about these days. My wife says it might be midlife crisis, but you just got to rate from 1 to 5, 1 the lowest, 5 the highest, how important each of these parameters are to you. You want to hit us with the first, Kiara?
Wealth. 4.
Okay. How about fame?
3.
Friendships or connections?
4.
How about legacy?
2.
What about impact?
3.
How about fun?
4.
And the last one is health.
Oh, health. 4. I didn't get up to 5 on any of them, huh?
Well, your wife may not agree how you think about health on that last one. So there may be a discussion there. But it makes a lot of sense because you didn't make it to 5 on any, but you did talk about what are the things that really make you happy. And in that, you talked about impact being an important element of it, fun being up there, health being up there, and obviously wealth is something enables you to do a lot of things.
I don't think it's as important to me as it is. I would like to have enough wealth that I didn't have to worry about it. I don't need the fancy car and all that stuff, but I need enough wealth that I never have to worry about it again. You just do what you're going to do.
That is very fair. And clearly throughout your journey, you've followed those things that make you happy. So, giving up, potentially going down that corporate law path to then get into the film and TV business in the first place. And even now, even at well established in your career, but the courage to actually move to an entirely different continent and reinvent the next chapter as well. All of that, I think, takes a lot of character to pull off. And I think in all of that, you're thinking about what are the things that make you happy. So clearly you're a person that's followed your passion, and we're just very lucky to have heard your stories.
Well, thank you very much. It's fun to have been here with you. and fun to have gone through this. And I wish you all the best luck with this podcast. I'm hoping that this is going to become viral and a huge hit, and and it'll become part of your legacy.
As long as we have fun.
Yes, exactly. You have to have fun. If you have fun, people see you're having fun, and that makes a difference.
I think today was a lot of fun, and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, Loucas. I've heard so much about you before the podcast, and to finally get to hear your stories, it was really incredible.
Thank you, Loucas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Loved having you.
Bye, guys.
All right, Kiara, we're back and ready to wrap up. But before that, it's time for your history lesson on how your elders used to survive in the good old days.
In the good old days.
Used to survive in the good old days sounds very dramatic. And so I'm bracing myself. What is it this time?
I'm here to tell you about the TV guide. Do you know what a TV guide is?
No clue.
So back in the day, if you're in the US and you wanted to know what time your show was on, you'd get this magazine called the TV guide. And in India, we'd actually check the newspapers every day where they would tell you what is on every channel, every half hour or every hour. And so if you wanted to know when your show was on, or when a cricket match was on, or when anything was really on, or when the news was coming on, you would actually go ahead, look at the schedules, and see what was up.
So it's like a printed schedule on paper.
Yes.
I guess if Netflix had a menu, is that what it would be like?
Something like that, especially if Netflix also said you can only watch something at a specific time. And so you can't watch it later, you can't watch it afterwards. If you did want to watch something later, you'd have to wait for the rerun. So if you missed an episode at 8 p.m., the rerun might be on at 11:30 p.m. or at 10 a.m. the next day. So you try and catch that.
That sounds intense, but also kind of cool. Like you had to plan your life around TV instead of, the other way around.
Exactly. And our guest today, Loucas, he actually created the kind of shows that we saw on TV. So I thought it was pretty cool to get him on. And he's walked all the way from the time when there were TV guides to what he talked about now with just AI and new technology. What were your takeaways from Loucas today?
Well, okay, so my takeaway is that you never know where certain things can lead you. And I'm talking about hobbies or passions. So Loucas, we talked about law during this episode. Loucas talked about how law was the thing he thought he should be doing. I guess it's the sensible path, but that's not what this podcast is about. It's about the unconventional paths, and whether it's those hobbies or those passions, he thought that film or TV, it was just something on the side and not something he could actually do in life. But it was, and you never know what can inspire you and where that can take you. So it was very impactful for me.
Especially, I think at the end, he also tied that back in to say, if you have your hobbies and then be disciplined about it, you can actually build something out of it. So you're right. I think you never know where inspiration can strike.
Exactly. My mom's has been trying to tell me for years that discipline is key.
I can see her telling you that. Yeah. But in fact, I think I may have heard it a few times. But let's see, my takeaway was a little different from yours, but maybe ties in. As he talked about discipline and hobbies and arts and different areas of interest, I was actually amazed by the courage Loucas had to reinvent himself all along the way. When he started in film and TV, and when he started New York nightclub and doing sound and things like that for commercials, going all the way to film and TV the way it was, to how it adapted with special effects and CG, to then now he's talking about TikTok and AI and how he wants to build something in social media. And so he's constantly reinventing himself to figure out what's keeping up with current times. And he's even moved full load to an entire country, right? So to move later in life to a country you've not lived in before is pretty brave. And to be willing to take those risks at any time, to find those things that give you happiness, like you said, I thought that's pretty cool.
He's really reinventing and directing his own destiny.
That is true. That could almost be the title for this episode, Kiara. An episode that we might be about to wrap up.
Yes, that is all for today's episode, and we will see you next time. Until then, drive safe on the road less traveled.
Peace out, party people.